Hi, Max.
Hey there, how are you?
I'm doing well. It is great to be here.
Likewise, so amazing to be here.
I thought that I would start today by sharing my story so that you guys, you and your group will know like a little bit more about who I am and what my background is, not just as a clinician and an author and a specialist in binge eating disorder. The most prevalent eating disorder there is that most people don't even know is an eating disorder and think they lack willpower and control, but we'll get into that. But like, why do I know how to treat this and what do I know about what it's like? Because I've been there, right? Like I remember when I was starting out and I was a brand new therapist. And I was about to start my very first group for women struggling with binge eating disorder. And I open the door, and these women look at me, and here I am, brand new, excited therapist. And there they are, and they are all like in their 40s and 50s, and they were older and scary. And this one woman looks at me, picture her. She had bright red hair, big jewelry. She was scary. And she looked me up and down, and she said, so, what does a skinny bitch like you know about binge eating disorder? That look on your face, that was the look on my face. And what she didn't know was I once considered myself the poster child for eating disorders, but what I said was this skinny bitch once scarfed down an entire box of gingerbread cookies in about 15 minutes flat. And I hate gingerbread. Like, I still hate gingerbread, always hated gingerbread, but I could not stop eating those cookies. So I told this group that when I was 5 years old, I came to believe that if I were thinner, I would somehow be better. And yes, at 5 years old, that was the beginning of my descent into eating disorder hell. And if you look at all my journals from when I was a teenager, they're all numbers, right? Calories I ate, calories I burned, the weight I was, the weight I was going to be one day. Everything was, now it would be macros, then it was calories. And I was always on some crazy restrictive diet. Eventually, my willpower would fail and I would eat the kitchen. And this went on for years, and it was hell. I mean, the food noise was loud. And finally, I went to therapy, but I went for anxiety, right? I talked about all the things like, my family and guys and my future and friends and all the things and my family and my family and my family. And I talked about everything but food. My therapist had no idea that I was, in fact, the poster child for eating disorders. She had no idea I struggled with food. I never talked about it. And yet, when I left treatment, all my eating disorders were gone. And I'd never, not a single time, talked about food.
Hmm.
And people say, "Well, how do you do that? How do you get over all eating disorders without ever talking about food?" And the answer is because it was never about food. Food was not the problem. Food was actually the solution. Whether I was eating it, purging it, restricting it, whatever, it was the solution to the problem, not the problem. And everything changed when I changed my relationship with myself. When I changed my relationship with myself, which is harder to do than it sounds, everything with food changed too. And so I know what it's like to like vow to be good that day and, end up at night, like counting everything and wondering if you're going to gain weight the next morning or lose it. I know what it's like to go and feel really virtuous and superior because you only ate this and this and this, and then blow it and hate yourself. And I know what it's like to feel shame and to think, oh my God, if they knew, they would be disgusted with me. I know what that's like. I know what it's like to feel like sugar's your personal crack. I know what it's like to feel addicted, but I also know there is a way out completely. And that's where I am now. I forget. I don't even think about food. I forget there's ice cream in my freezer. If you would have asked me that when I was 20, I would have been like, that will never happen. There's no possible way I could be normal around food. Yeah, I am. And now I help other people do the same. So I know what it's like to be there and I know what it's like to be on the other side of it. And that's why I'm so excited to talk with you guys today because there's so much misinformation out there and I really want to impart what works and what doesn't work.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing. Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you, thank you. And from the
Welcome.
bottom of my heart, thank you so much for doing this. You don't have to do this. Like, it's a Sunday, it's around approaching noon in California. You're
10
taking
a.m.
10 a.m.
Yeah.
You could be doing anything else in the world right now, but you're taking the time to answer questions from the community and you're someone who's walked the walk. You felt the pain. You know what it's like. This stuff is not easy. It's all consuming. And so, I can't really put into words how much it means that you're here today to answer these questions and provide some insight and just be a beacon of light for people. So thank you so much.
You're so welcome. This is important, right? Like, yes, I could be at the beach or I could be wherever, but you know what's important? What's important is people's lives are at stake. Maybe not literally, maybe figuratively, but I want people to wake up and think about their day, not their diet. Like I want people to be free. That's why I talk about liberation, not recovery. It's
And
possible.
it, I love when you say it's possible because I'm right now I'm very immersed in this whole binge community, trying to help people in the group, etc. And frankly, there's a lot of people who are starting to lose hope. And so just seeing you say that it's possible, there is hope, it's so important because I don't even think in society it's a common understanding of how horrible this is. It's not to be taken lightly. So just to even provide that hope and show that you can have a better life, you can wake up in the morning and have a day where you're not thinking about food all the time and every decision is surrounded by something food related. It's possible. So
Yeah.
just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. If it's possible for the poster child for eating disorders, the ex poster child for eating disorders, it is possible for you too, all of you. Yeah. So
Excellent.
what do you want to know? Here I am.
So here you are. Let's start out. We got a good list of questions. First one we have for you is why do we hyperfixate on food even when we're not hungry? And that's the first part of the question. I'd love to hear your response to that, and then I'll delve into the second part of the question.
Well, look, if you are turning to food or thinking about it all the time, there's always a reason for that. If you're turning to food or food thoughts, you're turning away from something else. Let me actually give you an example from that group I told you about, that first scary group. There was this one woman in this group, and she would always say, like, no, nothing's eating at me, nothing's going on with me. There's no reason I'm turning to food. I just like food too much. I'm just addicted to sugar, whatever it is that she said. And this went on and on and on until the last day of the group. And it was like, I was always saying, well, what would you be thinking about if you were not thinking about those 20 pounds you want to lose? If you were not thinking about cutting out carbs, if you were not thinking about all the thoughts, what would be on your mind? Nothing, nothing, nothing. I have a happy life. Everything's great. The last day, she says, I've been thinking about it. I think if I weren't thinking about food all the time, I'd be thinking about maybe I'd want to leave my husband. Anyway, I feel fat, right? It is a lot easier as hellacious as it is a lot easier to focus on what we are eating than what is eating at us. And sometimes we know what's eating at us and sometimes we don't. But for this woman and for so many people, and that's a pretty extreme example, But it was easier for her to focus on food and on losing the 20 pounds and not binging and all the things than it was for her to recognize that she was deeply and fundamentally unhappy in her marriage. And
Wow.
and maybe she was eating to fill a void, but it was so scary and painful to think about breaking up her marriage or leaving her husband that she focused on those 20 pounds. And by the way, she would go on a diet, she would lose 20 pounds, and what do you think would happen? She'd gain it back. Because if she stayed with that weight loss, then she might have to face the husband thing. And same thing with people who maybe have to lose 100 pounds or people who don't need to lose weight at all. One of the things that I think is this is a little bit of a tangent, but I've always been a normal weight. No one would ever look at me and think that I was struggling with food. Like maybe it would go up 10 pounds or so, but one of the things that I think is a huge misconception, and I did want to make sure I said it, was that you can't tell that someone's struggling with food by looking at them. You know, you can you just can't. So whether it's a weight issue or just has to do with food, itself, um, there's always a reason. And so the trick is figuring out, well, what is it that you would be thinking about if you weren't thinking about food? And we go straight to food. So we don't think about something. So we don't feel something. That's why nighttime eating is such an issue, because during the day, we're all busy, right? We're doing things, we're working, we're taking care of kids, we're working and taking care of kids, we're in school, we're doing whatever it is, we're occupied. And at night, things slow down, and that's when thoughts can come creeping in or feelings can go come creeping in, and we don't want them. So we don't even let them reach our conscious awareness. We're just like, what's in the kitchen? DoorDash. Oh my God. What's wrong with me? Right? There are many, many reasons why we hyperfixate on food. You know, it's it's and I could go on and on, so just stop me when you're ready for the next question, but I'll just give you a few other reasons. Um, Sometimes people will say, well, I eat until I'm in physical pain. Like, I eat until I'm in physical pain. Surely I am a food addict. There's something in my brain. I'm like, no, we have minds, not just brains. We have minds. So, and so much of our minds are out of awareness, but not out of operation. That's our unconscious. Maybe you are unconsciously turning emotional pain to physical pain. No one is like, let me eat the whole pizza so that I convert my emotional pain to physical pain. But maybe that's what's happening. Right? Maybe you don't know how to comfort yourself. Maybe you're lonely or empty, and there are holes in your soul, in your life. You're unsatisfied, you're unfulfilled. Food symbolically fills that space. Like even the way we talk about relationships and our relationship with food, we talk about relationships with people as satisfying or gratifying. We feel empty when we're lonely, things like that. So you can see how, food symbolically takes care of us. It is a frenemy. It is a friend in that it is doing something for us. It is comforting us. It is distracting us. It is making us go numb, but it also hurts us. It hurts our bodies. It hurts our spirits, and it disguises the real problem.
I Amazing response. And it makes so much sense. One of my TikTok um, captions, and often, they're exaggerated or relatable kind of captions, but one of them was food is my biggest comforter and enemy. And that's how I felt, all growing up. And one thing that someone who I look up to that had dealt with this too told me is whenever I wanted to binge, ask myself, what am I trying to escape right now? And what you're saying about all of this just it makes sense. Like I'm trying to there's something, it's not just random. It's not
Yeah,
happening for no reason.
it's always happening for a reason, and often that reason is out of our awareness. I think I would like to share a story that really illuminates this because often we go straight to food. We don't know what we're feeling. If we knew what we were feeling or if we knew how we were activated, we'd address that. But it doesn't feel like that. It feels like it's about food. So I want to share the story of Jenna, who came to me and said, Dr. Nina, maybe some of your people struggle with emotional eating. And this is how she put it, like, let me just school you on this, Dr. Nina. She said, but she tells me she's a food addict and that she can prove it, knowing that I don't believe in food addiction, maybe eating addiction, if we're going to use the word addiction. So she tells me that she had had a perfectly good day. Everything was fine. Nothing in her life was going on. Nothing was bothering her. She was Netflix and chilling, and all of a sudden, Ben and Jerry's starts calling her name. That's how she put it. She's like, calling my name. I am addicted to Chunky Monkey. I said, well, wait a minute. What were you watching on TV before Ben and Jerry's started calling your name? And it was Charmed, which is her, her guilty pleasure. And so since she was doing something that she enjoyed, it was her favorite show, she thought there was no reason why she would want to turn to ice cream. I said, okay, well, what were what was the episode about? She's like, oh, it's when this demon comes down, breaks the bond between the sisters. They start fighting, got really nasty. Now, I know that Jenna has a terrible relationship with her sister.
Mm.
And so all I said was, oh, sisters fighting, huh? And Jenna gave me one of those like Home Alone, oh my God, because she realized, oh, watching the show activated her stuff about her sister. But before she was consciously aware that she was being triggered, she went to ice cream for comfort
Mm.
and distraction. Ice cream was not the problem, it was the solution to the problem. The real problem was the fact that she didn't know how to navigate this very difficult sister relationship. So, which was never going to change, by the way, because the sister had like a personality disorder, and no, there was no hope. So instead of saying, well, Jenna, next time ice cream calls your name, like brush your teeth, take the dog for a walk, write in your journal, take a bubble bath, or all the stupid things that people tell you to do when you want to binge, which are just other distractions that don't work as well as binging. Instead of doing that, we worked on identifying her thoughts and feelings about her sister and processing them and coming to terms with that. And guess what? Ice cream stopped calling her name.
Mm.
So, what do if, like Jenna, it really feels like it's about food? What do if you don't have me to go break it down for you? So, I developed this food mood formula because I started noticing that what people choose to binge on, usually first, because once you start, all bets are off. But what you choose to binge on first says a lot about what's hidden from you. So if it's ice cream or anything creamy, that's associated with a need for comfort. And it's really important to use different ways of comforting yourself. Like you wouldn't comfort a friend or a child by saying, "Oh, you're having a hard day. Here's some ice cream." You talk to that person. You'd comfort them with words. The second category is anything filling, like bread or cake or muffins or pizza or pasta, anything that takes up space within us. That is symbolically associated with filling a void. So if those are your go-to, look at what are the empty spaces in your life and find new ways to fill them. You
Wow.
know, crunchy, anything that makes you crunch down hard, associated with forms of anger. So that's, annoyance, irritation, frustration, anger, rage, like a whole range of feelings. And instead, you got to find a way of expressing that with words, maybe not to the person that's making you mad, but somehow like express it so that you don't take it out on yourself and then get mad at yourself for eating the whole family size bag of Doritos. And then chocolate or candy, maybe you need more sweetness in your life. And so
Mm.
this is a formula that only pertains to when you're using food to change the way you emotionally feel. Like eating some chips with your sandwich or just eating a sandwich is not, oh, you're filling a void. But if you're using it as a binge food, that's a way for you to check in with yourself of, okay, these are my this is what's really going on with me. And then once you know that, you can respond differently, which is, we'll get to that later. But that's a really important piece of this because it really feels like it's about food. It's not.
That's very interesting. I've never heard that formula before.
That's because I created it in my first 10 years. I've exclusively treated people with eating disorders for almost, counting my traineeship, almost 24 years.
Wow.
So um, I started noticing, like, that person was talking about how they ate like the 5 pints of ice cream and got sick, but they really needed comfort. And I started noticing it over and over and over. Oh, that person was really pissed off and they were eating chips. Hmm. So over 10 years, I really watched and took note and developed the formula. And it's pretty on target. And people are like, well, what if you like ice cream with crunchy things in it? Like, okay, well, then your primary need is comfort. But there's a little anger there too. And women are socialized not to be angry, by the way. You're supposed to be nice. You're not supposed to get mad. We get mad at ourselves, but we can't be mad at anyone else. So women are very, like I always tell women, be if you're mad at yourself for binging, you know, who or what would you be upset with if you couldn't turn on yourself? And
Hmm.
guys are socialized to be angry but not vulnerable, right?
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah.
And that's another reason why your message is so important because you have seen these patterns. Not a lot of people can say that. For me, all I can really provide is my own experience. That's one person's experience. Sure, the group has been around for about a few months and have been hearing a bunch of stories and whatnot, but compared to like meeting with patients and hearing stories every single day for decade, 24 years, like it's pretty hard to replicate that kind of understanding and pattern recognition. So I truly think that if we had no hard stop or some sort of agenda today, we could talk for like 5 hours about all of this.
We could do
Like,
it again. I don't think we'll get through
yeah,
all the
I don't think so either.
but
That's what I was.
we'll do our best.
Cool. Sounds good. Okay, so here's the second part of that question. How do you quiet the constant mental noise of planning, counting, and thinking about food throughout the day?
It's really something I already answered because if you're thinking about it, what are you not thinking about? Like what are you if you're not trying to control food, what else in your life are you trying to control? If you're not thinking about food or planning or this or that, what would be on your mind? If I had I actually have a Harry Potter magic wand, and I like I should have had it with me. Anyway, I like to, so pretend my Dr. Nina pen is a Harry Potter magic wand, and I wave it over you and say, okay, you cannot think any food thoughts. No food thoughts. I'm taking them away from you. What's left?
Mm, those underlying things that I don't, I push down or, don't even want to. It's like a scary monster in the closet that you can just run to food.
Yeah, so let's invite the scary monster out, and maybe it's not as scary as it seems,
Right.
because that scary monster is what you're distracting from if you're thinking about, okay, and I remember going on a hike with friends, and I wasn't thinking like, I'm having so much fun on this hike. It's such a beautiful day. I was thinking, okay, how many calories am I burning? What can I eat later? What can I not eat? Am I going to lose? Right? But it's the scary monster that we're avoiding.
Right.
So that's what has to be faced. And it's a lot easier to be like, oh, well, it's dopamine. Well, it's in my brain. Well, it's this or it's that. No, it's the scary freaking monster that you're trying to avoid.
Absolutely. Excellent. Okay. Next question is how do you lose weight after binging without falling into restriction that triggers another cycle?
Well, binging is a lot of calories. Binging is a freak load of calories. When you stop binging, you lose weight. You just do. Because you're when you and it's easier said than done, but when you and no one just stops binging, by the way. I should also say that in my 24 years I have never seen anyone who's just like, I stopped. And if they do, I'm always a little suspicious because it's too good, too fast. What happens is it goes from I did it, 10 times a day to I did it, 7 to 5 times a day to once a day to every other day to 3 times a week, to once a week, to once every 2 weeks, to, oh my God, I can't actually remember the last time I did it. Oh my gosh, is this possible? To it's been 3 months, it's been 6 months, it's been a year and a half. I stopped counting. So it's a process and it's not something you ever stop. What I tell people is right away, like this. It's like you come in like this. This is where you are organized yourself, and this is this new way of being. And I wish you could just go like if this is binging and this is normal eating, I wish you could just go whoop. You can't. You deconstruct this and you construct this new way, and then it's back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And eventually this new way takes over and this old way goes away. And everybody who needs to lose weight loses weight because binging is so many calories that even if you're compensating by restricting, if you're in the diet binge cycle, it still is so many calories that when you stop binging, your body will naturally go back metabolically to a good place, and you don't have to worry about losing weight because you're losing weight if that's what you
Right. Yeah. And I see that a lot of people, including myself in the past, after binging, the mindset is a lot of like shame and guilt and sadness and anger. And the first thing that comes to mind is I need to make up for that ASAP. So, a great idea in that moment is all right, let's just do the opposite. Let's not eat, which,
sets you up for a binge.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All righty. Next one
Oh,
is
I just want to say one thing that I tell my patients and clients, so I have coaching programs too. I tell people, let's reframe success. Instead of success being, I didn't binge, yay me, success is, hey, I realized at some point why I was doing it. And this is important. I want to talk about the way that we change. We don't go, we go from, I don't know why I'm binging. I must be a food addict to, okay, I know there's a reason, but I cannot figure it out for the life of me until I talk to you, Dr. Nina, or somebody. Then it's, oh, I realized why, but it was like 2 days later or the next day or 5 hours. I didn't not know at the time. Then it's, I'm binging and I know why I'm doing it because I'm thinking about the food mood formula, but then I say, whatever, I can't stop. Then it's, I'm heading to the kitchen. I know why I want to do it, but F it. I don't care. I'm going to do it anyway. Next is, I'm heading to the kitchen. I know why I want to do it. I'm going to try something else. You know, and eventually it's, I'm not thinking about it at all because I'm so good at recognizing what's going on with me, identifying, expressing, and reassuring, responding to myself that I don't need food as a coping strategy.
It makes sense. I think a really good point that you're making is that it's not a quick fix. And a lot of people nowadays want a quick fix, especially from something that's so painful. If you were in chronic pain and there was a medication that you could take for it, you're gonna want to take that medication. And so, in reality, to do this in the most healthy way, there's not some pill you can, I mean, there's GLPs and that's a whole nother topic, but, we won't open that can of worms unless it's one of the questions I forget. But it sounds like first figuring out your why. And then after you kind of know your why, then it's slowly, doing it less and less. And it just opens more questions that I want to ask you about patterns of how long have you seen like the timelines of people finding their why, and then what does that process usually look like with starting to binge less and less? Does it really vary from person to person? Do you see common patterns with that timeline? What does that look like?
Well, I can tell you that I've helped people who have struggled for decades, 20, 30, 40, even 50 years. And I have a 12-week program that people who struggle for decades will tell me, I've struggled for decades. You're telling me I'm going to be different in 12 weeks? And I say, yes, because you've been focusing on the wrong thing. You've been focusing on food. You've been focusing on diets. You've been focusing on the weed instead of the root. And when you get to the root and you have a guidance of the process, which I also, take people through in my books, of identifying your hidden why, learning how to express yourself, learning how to turning your inner critic into a friend, by the way, because so many people are so awful to themselves that you end up binging just to get away from your own mean voice. So, identifying, expressing, and responding differently to yourself, that's how we cope. And I have a whole strategies for that. Then you don't need food for that purpose. So the timeline is different. Some people in 12 weeks are like, "Oh my God, I like this is amazing," and they're done. Other people need longer. But it's possible. It's not like you're going to struggle with this for the rest of your life. Someone the other day just said, "Well, I know I'm going to have to struggle with this for the rest of my life." And I said, "No. No. Forget this in recovery thing. I don't believe in recovery. I believe in liberation. Recovery is I have to wake up every day and think about being good and following my this and thinking, tracking my that and being mindful. No. Liberation is I used to do that thing. I don't do it anymore. It's in my rearview mirror. And now I've got other things to think about and I'm living my life. Like I choose liberation, not recovery. You do not have to struggle with this for the rest of your life. And there is a way out.
That's a more attractive way to look at it too. There's a very popular book, Atomic Habits, and one of the principles in there is making a habit attractive. Let's say I don't want to study, but let's say every time I study, I get to listen to great music, makes it more attractive. And so you sharing the message of you, one, this isn't going to be easy, but it is doable. And two, it's very much worth it. And three, you don't have to wake up being all consumed by it makes this more attractive. So again, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
All right. Looks like we got another double question here. So I'll start off with the first part. Why do certain foods like sugar seem to flip a switch where you suddenly feel hazy and want to eat everything?
I think that we have minds, not brains. And I certainly remember feeling, you know, like I was addicted to, say, cookie dough or something like that. Like I couldn't just make cookies. I would make it. I would pretend I would eat a bunch of it. I would wait till my mom left and I would just scarf it and pretend that I dropped it and or that I put in salt instead of sugar as an excuse for why I threw it away. Only really I threw it down myself. Um, but it felt very much like something got activated and I felt like it was sugar. But it was the escape that we become conditioned to. So it feels like it's the substance, but it is what the substance is doing for you. So if it's flipping a switch and making you feel hazy, well, what are you not thinking about? Right? You're making yourself go hazy. What are you not thinking about if you're in this hazy state? Right? So really be curious about that. Um, what's this hazy state doing for you? It seems like it's coming from sugar, but it's not. You're using sugar to achieve the state.
Very interesting. That's something just good for all of us to meditate on, and kind of like even for myself, visualize myself in that scenario and think, all right, like what exactly am I trying to escape from? The question that I said earlier. And the second part of this question is,
Or protect yourself from. Sorry, you know what? I think escape is really protection. The scary monster, yeah, you're trying to escape the scary monster, the thoughts, the feelings, the whatever it is that you don't want to see, think, feel, process, recognize. But you're trying to protect yourself. So if food is your best friend and your worst enemy, it's because you're trying to protect yourself from something.
absolutely.
What? What is that? Which is a kinder way to look at it for me than, well, you're trying to escape this. It's like I don't like the term defense mechanisms. I'm a psychoanalyst and we talk about defense mechanisms. I don't like that term. Protection mechanisms, because that's what it really is. You're protecting yourself from something. What?
Yeah, 100% makes sense. And I think that's a good reframe of that word too, because escape has like a negative connotation. So that makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So, second part to that question is, how do you include those foods without losing control?
So many years ago, this woman came to me and I'm gonna answer the question through a person who had a similar question. Um, and she said that every day after work, she would tell herself she was not going to have a vanilla milkshake. And every day her car would just go to in and out like of its own volition, and she would have a vanilla milkshake. And then she thought, "Ugh, I've blown it. I might as well have all the things, right? So she's trying not to eat vanilla milkshakes. So she said, please help me stop eating these vanilla milkshakes. So I told her, okay, I know exactly what to do. You have to do it though. Do you promise you'll do exactly what I tell you to do? And she's like, I'll do whatever you say. So I said, okay, every day, we're going to meet again in a week. Every day, I want you to go and have a vanilla milkshake.
Mm,
And she looked at me like I had lost my mind. And I said, just do it.
mm,
So 4 days in, she calls me. Oh my God, do I have to keep having these vanilla milkshakes? Because now I'm really sick of them. What happened? When she told herself she couldn't have it, she created deprivation, fixation, and a need to have those vanilla milkshakes because we want what we think we cannot have. When I told her that she had to have them, she actually had more choice, right? Because she decided she actually didn't want them because she had to have them.
that's very interesting. Do you think that approach can be universal and help everybody?
But only if you're also looking at why you want those vanilla milkshakes too. Because it's never about it was not just it was well we also to look at well why? What are those vanilla milkshakes doing for you? What are they distracting you from? What's on your mind if you're not thinking about that? And so once she was able to go like, okay, I don't feel that compulsion, that pull, that drive to vanilla milkshakes, maybe there's some room in my mind to think this through a little more. But yes, deprivation leads to wanting what you cannot have. And deprivation, aka dieting, it just creates binging. Dieting creates binging. I have my I raised my daughters, both of them being like when they were wanted a snack, I'd be like, well, do you want some cookies or do you want some hummus and carrots? Do you want some ice cream or do you want some, an apple and peanut butter? So I would present these two kinds of foods as if they were equal. So of
Gotcha.
course, you would if a kid was not allowed to eat ice cream, they would want ice cream all the time. But my kids are intuitive eaters because they looked at those things as equal and their bodies didn't want ice cream. Their bodies wanted real food.
Very interesting.
So so if you deprivation leads to binging. You've got to deprive the deprivation and change people will say, well, I can't eat whatever I want. I'll just eat all of it. I'm not, yeah, I know that it's how it feels. So that's why instead of focusing on food as your gauge for success, focus on why do you want the vanilla ice cream milkshakes? Why do you want the whatever? That's success. You're gonna binge until you don't. Like I tell people, I'm not here to take binging away from you. I'm here to help you give it up voluntarily because you don't need it anymore.
Mm, I see.
And we do that by focusing on why you're eating, why power, not willpower, why you're eating. If you can focus on why you're turning to those foods, that's success. I don't care what happens with it because I know that will change, but it will only change if you focus on the root of why.
Gotcha. So this is a question that we get a lot in the group is, you know, what are your guys' experience with cutting out this food? Did you have to cut it out completely? Did you incorporate it this, that, and the third? And I'm going to start recommending this approach, and I'm really curious to see how people respond to it.
And use the food mood formula, right? Instead of I shouldn't eat that, or if I eat it, I'm going to eat all of it, be like, I'm just going to focus on why I'm eating it. Because once you know, you can't unknow it. Like it stops working. Like I've had many, many people who come in and say, well, I tried to binge, it doesn't work anymore. I'm stuck with my monster. I got to deal with that.
Interesting.
So it stops working when you realize what it's doing for you.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It put me into reflection mode for a sec there.
Mm, good.
Um, Alrighty. Number 5. How do you combat the mental shift right before a binge, that flip from motivation to tunnel vision?
Um, well, I like acronyms. So I think you got to take it to the next tier, TIER. You stop and think, stop sign in your head, stop and think. Identify, use the food mood formula. What's my why? Do I need comfort? Am I angry? Am I lonely? Am I empty? Am I unfulfilled? Do I need more sweetness in my life? What's going on with me? And then you learn to express it. And I'm talking about it like something that must be learned, but this is once you've learned it, this is what it is. Stop and think, identify, express. Our culture says, don't have feelings. Don't have feelings. You're strong if you don't have feelings, and you're weak if you have them. And then our culture says, but feel your feelings. What do we do with that? People do not know how to express their natural human emotions that are just reactions to situations. We don't know how to express them, so we try to ignore them, push them down, positive think them away. That's a big one, or stuff them down, none of which works. So we have to learn how to put a name to them and express them, which is, I'm really sad because this happened and it means this about this person or this the future or I'm really angry because this person treated me badly and it means that to me or this reminds me of something else. Like so you really have to express, so identify, express, and then respond. How do we respond to ourselves? Often response is be better tomorrow. That's not a response. That's a reaction. Response is okay. Um, of course I was upset. I was dealing with this. It makes sense. How could I not feel that way? Right? I'm not going to feel this way always. I'm going to remember my capabilities and my abilities, and I'm going to remember who I am. And I've done hard things before. I can do this again. I'm going to get through this. Right now, it sucks. And when you go through that process, which I just sort of truncated, guess what? You're not thinking about food. You're thinking about you. You're reflecting. You just said, "Hey, this makes you reflect." When we reflect, we don't react. Binging is a reaction. Something
Mm.
is triggered, ah, escape. Reflection is the key. That's why, I like to say curious, not critical. Be curious, not critical. Critical is, can't believe I ate that. What's wrong with me? I'm disgusting. Blah, 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 blah. Curious is, okay, what was going on with me? Why did I do that? Oh, let me remember the formula. Let me learn how to exercise. And by the way, all the things I'm talking about, I talk about in my book, The Binge Cure, and also um my newest book, which is Beyond Binge Eating, which is all about reflections, right? It gives you things to reflect about and things to do. So when you move into reflection, you move out of reaction.
That's a really good segue into this next sort of question I have. It's a kind of a thought experiment. So sometimes I'll just be relaxing, doing my own thing, whatever, look at my phone, and I'll get a message from the group. Hey guys, really struggling, really want to binge right now. So let's create an example. Let's say Jeremy, made up name, obviously, texts in the group. I really want to binge right now. Anyone have any tips? But Jeremy, he doesn't know about any of this. He doesn't know the why. He doesn't know any of these strategies or mindsets that you talk about. What can we tell Jeremy to at least help him tonight with no knowledge of any of this kind of thought processes?
Well, you have to use the knowledge of what I'm saying by saying, Jeremy, what do you want to binge on first? And Jeremy says,
Cookies,
cookies. Soft cookies or crunchy cookies?
soft.
Jeremy, soft cookies are associated with filling a void. What is the empty space you're trying to fill? What's empty in your life right now? What's hard to think about?
My relationship, well, a lot of things. My relationship with my family is poor and it's really cold outside and I just kind of feel miserable.
So, Jeremy, what would you say to a friend who had a bad relationship with their family, who was miserable, it's cold, nothing feels good, just wants some kind of comfort or distraction or escape? Would you say, here's the box of cookies?
No,
Yeah.
I wouldn't because I don't think it would help them in the long term.
So Jeremy, what would you say to your friend?
I think I would just talk to them for a while, give them some TLC, do what I can, obviously. I'm not Jeremy. I can't um, do anything for him, but I can really just show him love and try to help him work through whatever that void he's having is.
And he can start to do that for himself. Often we speak to ourselves in a really toxic way, but we speak to other people in a really kind way. I used to have this group in person, and like people would say, "Oh, this happened," and they'd be like, "Oh, well, maybe there was a reason you ate the whole pizza. Like, have some compassion for yourself, and like, why was it, or what are the empty spaces, or whatever." And then when it was their turn, at least in the beginning, they'd be like, oh my God, I hate myself. And how do they speak to themselves often? In second person voice. So they would say to themselves, you're disgusting. You have no willpower. You're out of control. You're gross. And I'd be like, who's talking with that? You say that from an I place. Well, I can't say I'm disgusting. That's harsh. Exactly. One of the things that people can do right away to start changing their self-talk is to look at the way they talk to themselves. So if people are saying, "Well, you're disgusting and you need to do better and you need to like crack the whip and you," change that into an I. It's really harder to talk to yourself in a mean voice from an I place. It's really much harder. And you cannot hate yourself and be kind to yourself at the same time. Like when you're kind, when you turn your critic into a friend, I said, how did I change my relationship with food by changing the way I was to myself. I was a perfectionist. I was really mean to myself. I was a slave driver. I was horrible to myself. I used food to get away from my own mean voice, among other things. When I was there for myself, more gentle, more supportive, kinder, supportive again, guess what? I didn't need food to distract me because I was there for myself. So you could say to Jeremy, you know, dude, have some compassion for yourself. Be nicer to yourself. Like, talk to yourself like you talk to your best friend.
I see that so much too. Every single day, if people talk to their friends, strangers, others, the way they talk to themselves, everyone would be nasty. Or I'd say 95% of people would be nasty. And I think what's on your mug, curious, not critical, is like a perfect way to say it. It is because it's like so many of the things that I've done, in my life, like I can't even be mad at myself for doing. It's not like I've done horrible, like I'm not trying to make it sound like that, but let's say I made a mistake. It's like, all right, I was trying to do my best and protect myself in that moment. Instead of getting like real upset with myself, let's like look into why did I do that? It didn't, I didn't do it for no reason.
Exactly.
And so but growing up, like I didn't understand that. The first thing I intuitively did was just feel guilt and really upset with myself. So it's been a learned habit. One book that really helped with that, I'll plug it here real quick. It's called Chatter. It's by Ethan Cross, and it's literally about what you're talking about. Um, just about talking to yourself instead of listening to yourself. Um, so it's just fantastic breakdown of all of that you just did.
Yeah. And that is the key. The key to changing your relationship with food is changing your relationship with yourself. Because eating is a way of escaping yourself, your thoughts, your feelings, maybe your own mean critical self. When you learn to support yourself and recognize what's eating at you, it's not what you're eating that's the problem, it's what's eating at you. When you learn to recognize that and respond differently, everything changes. That's liberation. It is a process. It is easier to focus on food than it is to go, I'm really scared about this, or I'm really upset about this, or I'm mad at someone I love, or I want to, I feel misunderstood, or whatever it is that's going on with you, or I'm hopeless, or I'm depressed, or I'm anxious, or, I'm scared. That's scary. It's easier to think about this. And there's a lot of displacement. There's a lot of, instead of being upset about this, get upset at yourself for what you ate, you know,
Hmm.
instead of
Interesting.
feeling big feelings, you think you're big. So there's a lot of psychology to it.
It's really just interesting to talk about and think about.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 6. Binge eating feels like an automatic habit. How do you change it gradually without losing trust in yourself every time you slip up? I think that's a great question.
It is a habit. It is a habitual reaction to something inside, right? So the answer to that question has already been answered. Right? Because when you look at, well, it's a habitual response to what? Something within. When you identify what that thing is within, you create a new habit of responding to yourself differently, expressing what's going on, responding to yourself differently. Then you don't turn to food as a habitual response because your new habit is, hey, I'm showing up for myself and I'm identifying, expressing, and reassuring myself, and I'm good. It seems like the habit is about food, but it's using food. That's why I believe in eating addiction, even though I wrote a book called Beyond the Primal Addiction. The whole point, or co-edited the book, the whole point of the book is addictions are coping strategies. So an eating addiction is the use of eating to cope, not an addiction to the substance of food, even though it feels like it.
Right.
Because I have so many people who walk into my office and say, I'm addicted to food, like that person with the question that I can feel it physiologically. It's like something has been a switch has been flipped, right? It's physiological. It's not psychological. No, it is psychological felt as physiological. So an eating addiction is an addiction to using eating as a way of coping, not an addiction to the substance of food.
Gotcha. So it's like a symbol for what's really happening. Cool. All right. Number, where are we? 7. How do you detach food from emotions when it's been your coping mechanism for as long as you can remember?
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of these questions go back to the same place, right?
Right.
You realize, well, yeah, it's a coping mechanism, but what is it helping you cope with? Are you are you mad? Are you sad? Are you anxious? Do you feel shame? Do you feel guilt? Sometimes we feel guilt or shame about certain areas of our lives that gets displaced onto into eating. Or instead of feeling guilty about this in our lives, we feel guilty about what we ate, or we feel helpless. This is another big one. We feel helpless in certain areas of our lives, but helplessness is an absolutely horrendous state for humans. And so we convert helplessness over whatever's going on in our world or in the world onto helplessness over food, which we ostensibly could do something about. So instead of I'm helpless about, the fact that I don't know, I can't even think of something without giving something away of something that someone just said to me, but I feel helpless about the state of the world, let's just say.
Mhm.
It's too big, it's too enormous, it's too scary. That becomes, oh no, I'm actually helpless over cookies. But I know what to do. And that's just me and cookies, as opposed to I have no effect over the state of the world. That's too frightening.
I see what you're saying.
So it's always, well, what's this doing for you? And there are so many different ways that it is doing something for you. There are so many ways that it is a frenemy. And the key is
Gotcha.
to figure that out. And then you can't fight an invisible army. You just get beaten up. And the invisible army are the ideas, the thoughts, the beliefs, the feelings, the whatever it is that you're not aware of, but keep affecting you and affect your relationship with food. When you make that army visible, oh, this is what's going on. Oh, I'm actually feeling this or I'm thinking that. Now you know what you're fighting. Now you can fight back.
Absolutely. I think one question that would help some people, and me included, is some people they've never heard of this stuff before. Let's say they were on the call with us right now. They're like, what the heck are you talking about? There's like, this is a foreign language to them. And and then we break it down for them. And their response might be, oh my goodness, this is a lot. Like, I'm just trying to like not binge tonight or not fall off the wagon tonight or just do a little bit better tonight. Where can I start? What are some like tangible, actionable, simple things without overwhelming someone that's just like, all right, this is like a lot of information.
If you tell yourself not to have something or to have less of it, you will binge on it or you will be thinking about it all the time. You really have to radically change your definition of success. Obviously, you don't want to binge, but how has this been working for you? Right? It doesn't work. It's the same cycle all the time. I won't do it. I won't do it. I won't do it. I did it. Duh. So don't do more of what hasn't worked. This does not work. It will not work in the long run. The first thing you could do is today go, I'm going to just look at my why. I'm just going to use that food mood formula and look at my why and really change, shift my perspective. You know, it doesn't sound satisfying to someone who's like, but I just don't want to eat the whole pizza tonight. Well, you're going to eat the whole pizza tonight if you tell yourself you can't. Or do you really want to feel good about yourself because you didn't eat the pizza? Like what else you want to feel good about yourself in your life? Like what else makes you feel good about you? Is it really that what you're eating or not eating? You know, get more
What if
interested in you.
what if they respond to that? Because this is actually like, I wouldn't say extremely common, but sometimes, people chime in. It's a pretty active chat and discuss some things that have helped. And they're just like, something like, I hear you guys that it makes sense logically, but I just can't stand another moment without eating this. Like I just can't stand it. Like it's all I want to do right now. What can someone say to that?
I would say what I said to the milkshake person who looked at me like I maybe had grown a second head when I said this. Eat it. If trying not to eat it makes you want to eat it more, and if it's the only way to cope in that moment, eat it and tell yourself, I'm doing the best that I can do, and I'm just going to recognize why I'm having this. And it won't necessarily be this way tomorrow, but today I'm going to have it because there's nothing else that works. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, and people are probably going to listen to this and go like, "What?" But 24 years of doing this, this is what works. What doesn't work and what keeps people struggling for decades is I'm not going to eat the thing. Have it, but have it recognizing why you're having it.
Hmm.
Why do you want it so much? What's it doing for you?
This is
Eventually, you will not have it because it's not going to work the same.
so interesting. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to suggesting this and seeing how people respond. Instead of a common response is stuff that's helped me, because really all I can talk about is my own experience, which has been years and years and years of finding that why and introspection, which is why I resonate with so much with what you're saying. And paired with that is just healthier ways to deal with my emotions, whether it's art or XY, just healthier ways to maneuver through uncomfortable situations. Um, what do you think about? So let's say Jeremy, he was like, I just can't stand it anymore. I can't stand another second without it. Obviously our recommendation is going to be, okay, do it. What if
Oh,
Sally,
wait,
but
wait. I actually just thought of one thing that Jeremy could do, which is in
uh,
my book.
yeah,
So,
love to hear it.
okay, so I call it surfing the binge wave or surfing the hunger wave, I call it, but it's really should be surfing the binge wave. So when you see a wave, right, it builds and builds and builds and builds and builds and it builds and builds, but eventually it crests and it falls. So if you could think of it as I'm gonna surf this moment, I'm gonna I if I still feel this way after this wave, I'm gonna have it. But first, I'm just gonna see if I can take 3 minutes, or if 3 minutes is too long, 1 minute. And know that like that urge is building, 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 building. It will diminish if you look at it like a wave.
I see.
That is one thing that is one practical thing that people can do. But if they still feel it after that, or they ride a couple of waves, then okay, have some of the thing, but recognize, well, what are you feeling? What are you thinking? What just happened? Like, don't just eat it and think like I'm giving in. Eat it with conscious awareness. Oh, I'm doing this because I don't want to think about this and this and this.
I see.
Because otherwise, you're white knuckling it and it's willpower. And that just keeps people in a place of willpower and food instead of, well, what is this resolving for you?
I yeah, I really it's just super interesting for me to think about because sometimes so back to like using fake names as an example, like Sally will say, "Oh, these are some things that have helped me." Taking a warm shower, something I've said, going on a walk, uh, maybe cleaning a room, healthier things that are kind of band-aids.
They
But,
don't work in the
thinking
long run.
about it for me, like if I hadn't done the inner work for all these years and like, it wasn't a quick process whatsoever, then I wouldn't have you know, a better relationship with food now. If it was just purely trying to have better quote unquote coping mechanisms when this urge popped up and there was no sort of perspective into like my feelings and all of that kind of stuff, then I don't think I would be where I am. So it makes sense.
There are two ways to deal with feelings, and we'll probably have to do this again to get to the rest of the questions, which I'm happy to do. There are
Also,
two
too.
ways to deal with feelings. One is, and the only way to get rid of feelings is to feel them, as counterintuitive as it is. And of course, we're not taught how to do that. But the only way to get rid of feelings is to actually feel them. And we see that with little kids. Like little kids are sad, they cry, and then they're like, okay, or they have a little tantrum because they're not getting the toy they want at Target. And then they're eventually like, okay, they're done, right? They got their feelings out and they're good. We are taught not to feel our feelings, but the only way to get rid of them, not that I'm suggesting that we should have a little tantrum, but we must learn how to process our feelings and not just intellectually, but emotions are called feelings because we feel them in our bodies. And a lot of people will say, well, I realized I was very angry. No, anger is not like I'm very angry. Anger is right? Feeling it in your body. So, two ways to get rid of feelings, feel them and temporarily distract from them. It actually doesn't get rid of them. It's a temporary distraction from
It's a
them.
band-aid. Band-aid.
That's
Yeah.
eating, that's showering, brushing your teeth. One of my patients once said, if brushing your teeth worked as well as binging, I would have the whitest teeth in America. Like it doesn't work as well as binging. So those are all distractions, band-aids. They don't address the root. They're just focusing on the behavior. Thoughts, beliefs lead to feelings, lead to behavior. If you're only focused on the behavior, it's temporary. You've got to get to the root of what's creating that behavior. Learn new ways of dealing with your feelings, learn different ways of thinking about yourself and the world. That's the way out.
It makes sense.
Notice I don't even talk about food with uh, it's about it's about this and this, not about this.
Right. And I will say, for myself, the kind of the band-aids are just like a cherry on top for me. Having um, developed like new neural pathways of responding to uncomfortable emotions has helped me, frankly. Like let's say I'm anxious and worried about something just because I've peered so much into that feeling. Now it's more of a okay, like let's breathe and have some good mental chatter about it, and on the outside that could be looked at as a band-aid, or let's breathe and go walk. And on the outside that could be looked at as a band-aid. But I think it sometimes the band-aids are, in my opinion, in conjunction with that work and are very important tools for me to have in my toolkit, as I like to call it.
Yeah, there are different levels of tools. So that's a great tool. deeper tool eventually is, yeah, of course I'm anxious. I'm anxious about this, this, and this. How else could I feel? Now, what can I do about the situation? And if I can't do anything, how do I address it? And, but like really honoring, yeah, I am anxious. Of course I am. And have all of these strengths and capacities and abilities, and I'm going to get through this, right?
Right.
They're just
And
different tiers.
absolutely. And I know we got to wrap up soon, but one more quick question that I just want to ask. Would you agree or disagree that the majority of people do not know how to healthily regulate or deal with their emotions?
Absolutely agree.
Yeah.
Our society is we are socialized to dismiss emotions, see them as weaknesses. Look at our culture like, oh, you're angry, you need anger management classes, or you're sad, you must be depressed, take a pill. Now, some people do need medication, but like our normal reactions to situations as humans are being pathologized as there's something wrong with that. So what do? When we have these reactions because we're human beings and we don't know what to do with them, and just the very fact that we have them is seen as negative and bad. Well, we do something with them to avoid them, to express them, to whatever. So, yes, we live in a society that says, don't be human, essentially, instead of let's embrace the range of what we feel. Because if you tamp down certain uncomfortable feelings, guess what? You also tamp down happiness. Like we need to have the whole range of feelings to be fully human, and let's embrace that.
Well said. It's the human experience.
Indeed, it is.
Amazing. So I guess it's time to wrap it up. Would love to do this again sometime whenever we both have time. I'd say we got about halfway through the questions, and I even got messages. Can I still add questions? Can I still add questions? I had to cut it off after a little bit. So I'm looking forward to sending this and seeing some responses, and I know it's going to help people. So thank you again.
You wait, I'm just gonna stop the recording. You are so welcome. It was a pleasure to speak with you, and I'm happy to do it again and send the questions. Hold on.